Friends, I welcome you to this amazing and perhaps not quite typical for us discussion. Today we will touch on a topic that may not only surprise you, but also seriously change your views on kindness, its importance and influence on our lives. We are all used to thinking about kindness as an undoubted good, and the more of it in our lives, the better the peace around us. This, in principle, seems logical. Helping others, we make this world better, cleaner, and happier. However, today I want to share with you a thought that may seem somewhat unexpected. Excessive, indiscriminate kindness can not only hurt you personally, but also literally destroy your life. Yes, you heard correctly. Today we will delve into this topic in detail and look at it from different angles in order to understand exactly how this can happen and, most importantly, what to do about it. So, where did such thoughts come from? Studying the philosophy of Stoicism, I understood more and more with each step how people, striving to do good, often begin to sacrifice themselves to the detriment of their well-being. The unwillingness to refuse, the desire to help even at the expense of oneself, lead to the fact that a person gradually loses his identity, his personal boundaries, and, ultimately, his mental balance and inner well-being. This does not happen suddenly, not in one day. No, it all starts with the little things. First, you postpone your interests for the sake of others, then you say yes more and more often, even when your whole mind is protesting inside you. And now, you no longer notice how this path becomes so familiar that you are no longer able to refuse, even if it destroys you from the inside. But, dear friends, don't worry. Today we'll figure it all out together, and I'll show you 10 key reasons why excessive kindness can backfire on you, and how the wisdom of the ancient Stoics can help you find that golden balance between altruism and selfishness, which is so necessary for a full and happy life. The first, and perhaps one of the most insidious reasons why excessive kindness can destroy your life, is the risk that it will turn into a doormat for others. Imagine this picture: you are always ready to help, you always say yes to any request, even if your inner voice tells you no. You sincerely believe that you are doing the right thing, that your kindness will definitely be appreciated. But what is actually happening? People begin to take your kindness for granted. They get used to the fact that you are always there, always ready to support, take their problems and worries on your shoulders, even when you yourself are barely afloat. Gradually, those around you begin to see you not as a friend or partner, but as a kind of rug on which you can wipe your feet. Your needs become invisible, and your kindness becomes commonplace. They stop seeing you as a person with their own boundaries, dreams, and desires, and begin to expect that you will always be ready to help, regardless of your own needs. And here we come to the most important lesson that Stoicism teaches us: kindness is not endless self-sacrifice, it is a wise and balanced attitude towards oneself and others. The great Stoic Seneca said, "Never act for the benefit of another at the expense of yourself." And this is not a call to selfishness or callousness. This is a reminder that your own well-being is no less important than the well-being of other people. Think about it: if you completely exhaust yourself physically and emotionally trying to help everyone around you, you will end up not being able to help anyone, including yourself. You will simply burn out. You will be left without energy and strength, and you will be useless both to yourself and to others. That is why it is so important to learn to say no when necessary and to establish healthy boundaries in relationships with people. The next reason why excessive kindness can backfire is the risk of becoming a magnet for so-called energy vampires. Have you ever noticed that the more you give, the more is expected of you? That your boundless kindness seems to attract to you people who only take, but do not give anything in return? If your answer is yes, then you are not alone. In psychology, such people are called energy vampires. They literally ask for your generosity, your time and attention, offering nothing in return. They can endlessly complain about their problems, ask for help and support, but when it comes to thanking you or helping you in return, they mysteriously disappear or find 1,000 answers. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoics in history, said, "Do good not for the sake of gratitude, but for the sake of the good itself." This is very wise advice, but it does not mean that we should uncomplainingly allow others to use our kindness for their own selfish purposes. Stoicism calls us to be selective in relationships, to give preference to those people who share your values and really appreciate your efforts. Otherwise, we risk turning into an inexhaustible source of resources for those who, by and large, do not care about us. And this is a direct path to exhaustion, bitterness, and disappointment in people. That is why it is so important to learn to recognize energy vampires and establish clear boundaries with them. This does not mean that you should completely stop helping or supporting them. But this means that you need to do it consciously, without harming yourself. Let's continue to consider the reasons why indiscriminate kindness can become your enemy. The next risk is losing touch with yourself. When you constantly put the needs of others above your own, you imperceptibly for yourself begin to dissolve in other people's problems and concerns. You immerse yourself so deeply in solving other people's problems that you completely forget about your own dreams, desires, and needs. Gradually, your life turns into a kind of background against which other people's stories and dramas unfold. You become a secondary character in your own life, while the main roles go to those whom you endlessly help and support. This is a very dangerous situation, because in the end you risk losing yourself completely. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest teachers of Stoicism, said, "First of all, decide what you want to be, and then do what you need to do." And this is a very powerful reminder that our main responsibility in this life is our responsibility to ourselves. Only by being true to our own values and principles can we truly be useful to others. Otherwise, we risk dissolving into other people's lives, losing our own uniqueness and identity. And this is too high a price for indiscriminate kindness and the desire to please everyone. Therefore, it is so important to regularly ask yourself the question, what do I want? What is important to me? What am I striving for? If you suddenly realize that in your efforts to help others you completely forgot about your own goals and dreams, maybe it's time to take a step back and rethink your priorities. Another reason why excessive kindness can harm your well-being is the risk of suppressing your true feelings. When you endlessly say yes, ignoring your own needs and desires, a whole bouquet of negative emotions begins to accumulate inside you: resentment, disappointment, anger. All this gradually collects inside, like poison, poisoning your soul and your sense of peace. And one day this poison can break out in the most unexpected and destructive way, dealing a blow not only to your psycho-emotional state, but also to your relationships with others. Stoicism does not teach us to suppress or ignore our emotions. On the contrary, this philosophy calls us to honestly recognize them and work with them consciously and constructively. Seneca described anger as the desire to avenge pain, and this is a very deep understanding of the nature of our negative emotions. So maybe, instead of hoarding this pain inside yourself, you should learn to say no with compassion and respect for yourself. Maybe we should allow ourselves to feel what we feel and express it honestly and openly, without fear of offending or disappointing others. The ability to say no when necessary is not weakness or selfishness, but a manifestation of healthy love and self-care. Only by learning to respect our own boundaries and needs can we truly respect and value other people. Otherwise, we risk turning into eternal victims who suffer in silence and dig both sides instead of building healthy and harmonious relationships. The fifth reason is the risk of losing the respect of others. It may seem paradoxical, but the more you try to please others, the less they tend to respect you. And there are reasons for this. The point is that respect is something that needs to be earned through inner strength, integrity, and consistency. When you say yes, even if everything inside you resists, when you do not protect your personal boundaries and allow others to manipulate you, you seem to broadcast the message to others: my needs do not matter. And people, sometimes without realizing it, begin to treat you accordingly. They take your kindness for granted. They lose respect for you because they see that you do not respect yourself. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors of Rome and a follower of Stoicism, reminds us the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. And in this case, the enemy is not a specific person, but our own tendency to excessive self-sacrifice, bordering on loss of self-respect. Having learned to say no with dignity and self-respect, we show others that we value ourselves and our time. And, oddly enough, this only increases our authority in their eyes. After all, no one will truly respect someone who does not respect himself. That is why it is so important to find a balance of boundaries with a desire to help others and concern for one's own dignity. This does not mean that it is necessary to become callous and indifferent to other people's problems. But this means that you need to learn to defend your boundaries and say no when it is necessary for your own good. The sixth reason why boundless kindness can become your enemy is the risk of emotional and physical burnout. When you give endlessly, without taking care of yourself and your needs, your internal resources are gradually depleted. You give without giving yourself time to recover, and at some point you may find that your well is completely empty. You no longer have the strength to give, because you yourself have nothing to give. You feel exhausted, devastated, deprived of vital energy and motivation. And this condition can last a very long time if not stopped in time. Stoicism teaches us to care for ourselves no less than for others. Seneca wrote, "Rest is not a luxury, but a necessity for a wise person." Rest and self-care is not just a pleasant pastime, but a vital process that allows you to restore your internal resources and avoid burnout. When we constantly ignore our needs for rest and recovery, it inevitably leads to complete devastation. We lose the ability to work effectively, be useful to others, and, most importantly, preserve our own well-being. Seneca said that leisure and recreation are true pleasures available to both fools and sages. This is a reminder that self-care is not selfishness, but a necessary condition for a full life. If we do not learn to devote time to rest, creativity, and activities that bring joy, we will inevitably begin to lose energy and motivation, which will lead to burnout. These can be any activities, walks in nature, meditation, hobbies that give a sense of meaning and self-realization. Remember that you cannot give others what you do not have yourself. If you are completely devastated, you have nothing to offer yourself or others. Self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. This is a condition without which it is impossible to maintain emotional, physical, and mental health. And this, in turn, allows you to be truly useful and useful to other people. The seventh reason why excessive kindness can hurt is the risk of missing opportunities for personal growth and development. Every time you say yes to someone else's requests, you are saying no to your own goals, dreams, and possibilities. Perhaps you had plans to spend the evening learning a new skill or language, but instead you agreed to help a friend move. Or maybe you have dreamed of going on a trip for a long time, but again postponed your plans because someone asked you for financial support or help at work. Other people's requests and needs, of course, can be important, and helping others is noble. But it is no less important to remember your own goals and aspirations. After all, if you constantly sacrifice your interests for the sake of others, you risk stopping in your development and losing the meaning and joy of life. Epictetus, one of the greatest teachers of Stoicism, said, "In every business, think about what must precede it and what will follow it, and only then proceed to it." This is very wise advice. Before agreeing to someone's request, ask yourself, what do I lose by agreeing to this? What will I gain if I refuse? Sometimes short-term discomfort from the word no can open the door to long-term growth, development, and self-realization. Perhaps the time and energy you saved by saying no to something unimportant will allow you to take a step forward toward your own goals, learn a new skill, or get closer to fulfilling your dreams. Do not forget that your life is your main project, and only you can decide how to manage your time and energy. Don't let other people's needs and expectations dictate where you go and what you do. The eighth reason is the risk of ruining relationships with loved ones. This may sound paradoxical, but sometimes our desire to always say yes and not to upset anyone can lead to the exact opposite result. The fact is that when we constantly sacrifice our interests for the sake of others, we unwittingly create unhealthy dynamics in relationships. A person begins to perceive our help as a matter of course, without offering anything in return. And when we finally try to establish boundaries and say no, it is perceived as betrayal. Relationships can seriously suffer when accumulated grievances, unspoken feelings, and disappointments begin to manifest. What previously seemed like strong friendship or love turns into a conflict filled with reproaches and misunderstanding. And we ourselves are largely to blame for this. Because they allowed themselves to be manipulated for a long time, they did not defend their boundaries and needs. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You did to bro, and the other benefited." Why do you still want a third, besides this, like a fool, so that people will see that you have done good and that you will be rewarded? This is a reminder that good deeds do not require praise or recognition. But this does not mean that you have to tolerate manipulation and ignore your own boundaries. A healthy relationship is always a two-way street. This is a balance between giving and taking, between taking care of others and taking care of yourself. And only in such relationships is there a place for real closeness, trust, and love. Only in such a relationship do both partners feel valuable, needed, and respected, not for what they do, but for who they are. That is why it is so important to learn to build relationships based on reciprocity, honesty, and respect for personal boundaries. This does not mean that you need to become selfish and always think only about yourself. But this means that it is necessary to find a golden mean between giving and taking, between yes and no. And then our relationship will bring satisfaction, not pain and disappointment. The ninth reason is a loss of self-esteem. When you constantly put yourself last and sacrifice your interests for the sake of others, you involuntarily give yourself a signal that your needs are not important, that you do not deserve attention and care. Gradually, this leads to serious consequences. You begin to believe that your desires and dreams do not matter. You may lose faith in yourself, begin to doubt your worth and significance. And this is a direct path to low self-esteem, self-doubt, and even depression. Epictetus reminds us that you suffer not because of what happens to you, but because of your attitude towards what happens. And this is a wonderful reminder that we ourselves decide how to perceive the world around us and our place in it. If we do not respect ourselves, do not defend our boundaries, and do not take care of ourselves, then we thereby give ourselves a signal that we are not worthy of the best. And this leads to the destruction of internal balance and well-being. Self-respect is the foundation on which our personality is built. This is a deep feeling of one's worth and significance, which does not depend on external factors and circumstances. And only on this foundation can you build truly healthy and harmonious relationships with other people. Therefore, it is so important to learn to respect and appreciate yourself, not for what you do, but for who you are. Learn to put your needs and desires not below, but on an equal footing with the needs of other people. Learn to say no when it's necessary for your well-being, and do it without guilt or shame. Remember that self-care is not selfishness, but a necessary condition for a healthy and fulfilling life. And only when you are filled with this care and respect for yourself, you will be able to truly share them with others. And, finally, the 10th reason why excessive kindness can become your enemy is the risk of missing the true meaning and essence of this beautiful quality. After all, when we endlessly chase the approval of others, when we try to please everyone and meet other people's expectations, we unwittingly turn kindness into a kind of manipulation tool. We start doing good deeds not because we sincerely want to help or share the warmth of our soul, but because we want to be liked, deserve praise, or avoid criticism. We become dependent on external evaluation and constantly live in fear of losing it. And this is not at all the kindness that the Stoics talked about. Seneca wrote, "We should not do a good deed in order to be noticed by people, but in order to act according to the dictates of our nature." And this is deep wisdom. True kindness is not about pleasing others or earning their approval. It's about being in harmony with yourself, with your values and principles. Kindness that comes from the depths of our heart does not require a reward and does not seek recognition. It is based on a sincere desire to make the world a little better, on compassion and concern for other living beings. And it is precisely such kindness that fills our lives with meaning and makes us truly happy. That is why it is so important to learn to separate true kindness from its surrogates and fakes. Learn to do good not for the sake of a tick or out of fear of condemnation, but because it is consistent with our values and beliefs. Learn to help others not at the expense of yourself, but with respect for your boundaries and needs. And only when we find this balance between caring for others and caring for ourselves, we can truly realize our potential for kindness and make this world a little better. So, dear friends, here are 10 reasons why excessive kindness can ruin your life. But don't be in a hurry to fall into the other extreme and become callous egoists. Stoicism teaches us the golden mean to be generous, but not to the detriment of oneself, to help others, but not to forget about one's own needs, to say no with compassion and respect. Remember the words of Marcus Aurelius, often late: a gracious concession consists not in what is done, but in what is not done. Sometimes the greatest act of kindness is not an unlimited yes, but a wise and loving no. No to manipulation and use, no to neglecting our boundaries and needs, no to everything that drains us and leaves us with inner strength. So let's practice this wisdom in our life. Let's learn to be kind to ourselves so that we can be truly kind to others. Let's value your time, your energy, and your talents, directing them to where they will bring maximum benefit and joy. And let's never forget that our well-being is not a luxury, but a necessity. Only by taking care of ourselves, we can effectively take care of the world around us. Don't be afraid to be kind, but be kind wisely. Do not be afraid to love, but love yourself no less than others. Do not be afraid to give, but give with joy and without expecting a reward. And then your kindness will not become a weakness, but a strength, not a burden, but wings that will lift you to the heights of the Spirit. Remember that in each of us there is a spark of divine light, and our task is not to let this world die out under the weight of other people's expectations and demands, but to ignite it into a bright flame that will light the way not only for us, but also for those around us. This is the true purpose of a person: to bring light, love, and kindness to the world. But do it consciously, wisely, and with self-respect. I believe that if we follow this path, we will be able not only to change our lives for the better, but also to contribute to the healing of our beautiful, but such a fragile world. Thank you, my dear friends, for being with me on this thoughtful journey. I hope that these ideas and thoughts resonated with your heart and gave you food for thought. Do not forget to share this video with a topic to whom it may be useful. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new releases. And remember, kindness begins with self-love and respect. Be kind to yourself, and this kindness will certainly return to you. I wish you the wisdom of the Stoics, balance in all areas of life, and the golden mean between selfishness and self-sacrifice. May your path be filled with light, meaning, and joy. All the best to you. See you soon.